my channel. My name is Lucy and I'm here this morning to share with you a really fun little Christmas tutorial. Yesterday evening I joined my online sewing community on Facebook for a live sewing session and we made this fabulous reusable fabric Christmas cracker and I loved it so much that I wanted to come on and share it with you guys. So I'm bringing you this morning the tutorial to have a go and make your very own Christmas cracker, fully snappable and ready to fill with your little gift for your friends and family. So there's a few things you're going to need to make your Christmas cracker. They're super easy to make. You probably have most of these things available from home. There might be a couple of things you need to buy. So here's what you're going to need. First of all, you're going to need to make your tube to make your Christmas cracker round like this. And I made this out of a piece of cardboard. You can use any cardboard, you're not going to see it, so a cereal box would be perfect for this. I'm just using some brown craft paper. You want it to be fairly rigid to hold its shape and keep that nice round shape while it's inside of your cracker. And you need to make 2 tubes using this cardboard. One of those tubes you need to have 3 inches long and about 3 inches in diameter. And the other one you want 4 inches long and slightly bigger in diameter, only very slightly. And I'll show you in a moment what I mean. Okay, so I've made my 2 cardboard tubes. One's the 4 inch and one is the 3 inch, as you can see here. And what you want to be able to do is the 4 inch one needs to be able to fit over the top of the 3 inch tube. So just like so. So you want it to be fairly snug with a slight gap around because your Velcro will be in there, but not too much because you don't want it to be too gapey when you attach them together. So next you're going to need a fat quarter of some gorgeous fabric to make your cracker from. So I'm going to be using this Red Star fabric, just like my gorgeous green one here, so I've got a matching pair. And you could buy this fabric from my online store as well. I'll pop the link in the comments for you. So I'm going to be making it from this. So I've got a fat quarter of that fabric. You're going to need some lovely ribbon to tie up your little pulls at the end. And you're going to need some Velcro as well to make your snap fastener in the middle and keep your cracker together. Now the Velcro that I've used was actually a 3/4 inch Velcro and I've cut it in half because I wanted it to be much thinner. I've tried out a couple of different sizes and by cutting the Velcro down in half, so this is now much more narrow. So this is about not even a centimetre wide, but a centimetre would be fine. It allows you to snap your cracker open much easier. So Velcro can be really tricky to pull apart if you're trying to pull it against its natural sort of way of opening, which is sort of a part like this. So if you're trying to pull it against itself, it can be really tricky. So the narrower is the better to go for, just like I've done here. So you need some Velcro. You also need some marking equipment to mark onto your fabric the size of your fabrics we need to cut, your scissors, pins or clips, and your sewing machine with a matching thread because we're going to be doing some top stitching on our cracker as well. And once you've done that, you're ready to start. So let's measure out our fabrics and start sewing. Okay, so I've just moved your angle down now so you can see my work table and I've got my fabric here laid on my table and it's the wrong side facing me. So the pretty side of my fabric is facing the table and I want to use the wrong side because I'm going to mark onto my fabric the size of the fabric that I'm going to need to cut for my tubes. So you're going to need your 2 tubes at this point as well and we need to measure the diameter of our tubes plus adding a seam allowance to get the width of our fabric, and then we're going to measure the length as well. So grab one of your tubes first. They should be both slightly different sizes. So I'm going to measure these in inches. So that is 9 1/4 inches around the diameter of my tube. I want to add on a centimetre seam allowance because I'm going to follow the edge of my sewing machine's foot, which is a centimetre with my needle in the middle. So I want to add on 2 lots of seam allowance, so that's 2 centimetres in my case, which is about, oh, I always forget in inches, I think it's about just under an inch. So I'm going to add on, if this is 9 1/4, that will take me up to 10. So I'm going to do 10 inches is going to be the width of my fabric. So let me just mark 10 inches on my fabric from the raw edge. Like so. I'm just going to make a couple of marks along. So that's going to be the width of my fabric. And then what I want to do is I want to cover my tube long ways with my fabric as well. Now these fabric crackers are fully lined as well, so you'll need to double the length that we measure here. So first of all, I'm going to measure my tube, which is 4 inches, and then I'm going to add on another 6 inches minimum. You can do more if you want this bit to be even longer and bigger. So for me, this is going to be 10 inches now I'm going to cut. I'm going to double that so I can line it, so it's going to be 20 inches. So I've got my measurement down. I'm now going to measure 20 inches along my fabric. I can find my markings and just mark that on as well, ready to trim. So 20, I'm going to cut off my raw edge on this side here. You can obviously draw these markings on with a ruler if you want to. I'm just going to fold them along and then trim them with my scissors. So if you fold your fabric on those little marks and just do what I call a finger press, you'll be able to get sort of a little crease line that you can follow along with your scissors if you don't want to draw. There we go. So that's just given me a crease line down my fabric now that I'm going to cut. I'm just going to cut off this raw edge as well. There we go. So I've now got my first strip of fabric, and that's going to cover my big tube here. I want to do exactly the same process for my smaller tube now. So I'm going to measure around my tube, add on the 2 centimetres for my seam allowance, and then I'm going to measure my tube, which is 3 inches, and add another 6 inches onto there. So this one's going to be 9 inches by whatever the diameter is, and that's what I'm going to use my other piece of fabric for. So just measure around. So it's going to be very similar. So this is 9, so it's going to be 9 3/4 inches, the depth, which is pretty much the width of that. I'm just going to trim a slight bit off going down, and then it's going to be just an inch shorter basically. So it's going to be 19 inches long because it's 3 inches plus the 6. There we are. So marked, I'm just going to trim that as well. So again, you can draw these measurements on if you want to be a bit more exact. I'm just going to trim off a little bit of the side. I'm just going to cheat slightly and fold it in half to do this because it was a little bit longer than I needed. There we are. So I have now my 2 strips of fabric ready for my 2 tubes. And then we're ready to start sewing. So I'm just going to put one aside for a second. And what we need to do, the first stage of the sewing is to sew down the long sides. So we want to join these 2 long sides together. So with your fabric facing you, you want to fold your fabric in half lengthways with the pretty side inside, so right side's facing. Pop some pins or clips, and we're going to sew down this long length with our 1 centimetre seam allowance or whatever you've allowed yourself. So I'm going to be following the edge of my sewing machine foot, a back stitch when we start, a back stitch when we finish, and we're going to leave the 2 ends open. And you want to do that for both of your pieces of fabric, exactly the same for your tubes. So folding them both in half and sewing down those long lengths. That's step 1. Okay, so I'm at my sewing machine now. I've got my red thread in ready because I'm ready for my top stitching a bit later on. And I'm just going to sew down these 2 long lengths now. Just find my machine foot pedal, just to secure these down the 2 sides. So I'm following a 1 centimetre seam allowance. Now to get that, to achieve the 1 centimetre seam allowance, all I'm doing is putting the raw edge of my fabric along the inside edge of my sewing machine foot with my needle positioned in the middle, and that will give me 1 centimetre. It helps me keep a really nice straight line, so as long as your cutting's really straight, you'll be able to follow that down and your line will be nice and straight. And it just gives me that seam allowance that I've measured in. This is just a standard straight stitch that I'm using now, nothing extra. I've just put some pins in to hold my fabric in place. And to take your pins out as you sew as well. You don't want to be sewing over your pins, particularly not these fancy pins. They're much thicker than dressmaking pins, so it's not going to be a good look when you accidentally hit them potentially. I have a broken needle. There we are, a little back stitch when I finish. So that's the first one done. So I've just sewn all the way down that long side length. I'm going to do the same with the other one for you. So this is such a fun Christmas project, and it's also really good for, you know, the environment as well. And, you know, I'm trying to make things with my online community that can be reused again and again, that help our children think about plastic. So these are, you know, a brilliant project to support that as well. And you can get the kids involved. You know, it's quite a simple make. They can help you do some of this. If you've got kids that like to do a bit of sewing, they can certainly help you make the tubes, tie the bows on, even do this stage here, they might be able to help you do. So a really good project to get the kids involved in as well. And I also think that these crackers make a fab gift as well. So if you're not using them just for, you know, Christmas dinner or whatever it is, a party, you could also use them as a gift. So you could make one for friends and family, fill it with some gorgeous little gifts. There's loads of room in there. And then give that as the gift. So alternative wrapping as well, which I think is a really cool idea. So just another little idea for you. So I've sewn down both lengths of my cracker now. So I've got my 2 lengths sewn down the outside, and now what I'm going to do is half turn them in the right way. So I'm going to turn it in, but only halfway. So just do this the best way you can, really. So you want the 2 end raw edges to meet. And you want to line up your 2 side seams. You can press them open if you want to. So these side seams that you've just sewn, it'd probably be worth pressing those open at home to make it a bit neater and less bulk. But you want to line those 2 side seams up. So I'm just going to pop a clip in there to hold that in place. And then you want to try and get your fabric to lay nice and flat in a tube shape. This makes our lining. There you go. So I've turned that in the right way, but only halfway. The raw edges all meet at the top. This end here is obviously folded. It's nice and flat and flush. I can get my hand in there, so it makes it nice and easy to make sure it's nice and flat. That's the first one. Same for the other one as well. So turning it in the right way in half. And these are great sizes. You don't want to make your tubes much smaller than this if you do sort of change it about, because you'll find it really hard to do this stage if they're too narrow. And also, when we sew around at these top seams to get rid of the raw edges, you'll really struggle on the sewing machine to do that as well. You'll see in a moment. So you don't want to make your tubes too much smaller. And plus, you can get a lot more gifts and things inside the bigger it is. So more generous too. So turning this one in halfway the right way as well. You want to make sure at this stage you get your fabrics nice and flat and flush on top of each other. So you don't want them twisted or anything. And get that top fold nice and flat. There we go. So that's the second one done. So next we want to apply our Velcro. So you need to get your Velcro. So you'll have the little hooks on one side and the little fluffy on the other side. This is sew on Velcro. You can buy stick-on Velcro, but it's not going to hold. It's not going to be strong enough. We're going to be pulling these crackers, hopefully year after year. So you want to be sewing these on. One piece of the Velcro needs to be sewn on the outside of your tube and one needs to be sewn on the inside of your tube. So you can do them, it's easier to sew it on the inside when you're sewing. So you can sew them both on the inside and then turn one in the other way. I will show you. Makes it a lot easier to sew. So you want to now measure your Velcro, the diameter of your cracker. This is just some left over from this one here, so it's already measured out. But basically what you want is you want your Velcro to be the width of your tube. This is slightly smaller, but it's all good for me. And then what you want to do is you want to place that Velcro going around the inside of your tube. I'm going to secure it with clips all the way around to help me, just a few, because they can get in the way. And then I'm going to sew this on with a straight stitch. You're going to see this stitching on the outside of your cracker, so just make sure you're using a thread that you don't mind seeing. And you want to go all the way around. So there's my Velcro just clipped on the inside. Ideally you want your Velcro to meet all the way around. This is just a slightly short of the bit that I've got cut, and then I'm going to stitch that with a straight stitch all the way around, and you want to do that for both pieces. So this one I'm going to apply on the inside as well, even though I want it on the outside. It doesn't matter what side of the Velcro you put on what tube, it really doesn't matter, so don't sort of worry if you do them differently. So that's both now clipped in place. So I'm going to get my sewing machine and I'm going to sew these on for you. Okay, so the reason we want to have a good diameter on our tubes for our crackers is so that it's also easy to get this under our sewing machine to now sew this Velcro on. So what I'm doing is sewing from the inside. So as you can see here, I'm just putting my tube, sliding it underneath my sewing machine foot. What I'm going to do is sew a top stitch around the top edge of my Velcro and the bottom edge of my Velcro to secure it really strong, so that we've got no risk of this Velcro coming off as we have fun pulling our crackers. As you're sewing your Velcro, you might find that it wants to sort of slip and slide a little bit and move around from where you positioned it. If you find this happening, what you can do before you start sewing it on is you can tack it on in place first to make it easier and to hold it exactly where you want it to stay on your fabric. So just sort of trial it and see how you get on. Once you've done the top one, you then want to do the same on the bottom row of your Velcro. So just sewing all the way around. And you want to do the same process for your other tube. So that's one stitched on, and then going to do exactly the same for the other. So again, sewing from the inside. Move your clips out the way, or your pins, whatever you're using. Try and keep your fabrics as flat as you can when you're sewing around as well. It's tricky because you've only got a small surface to sort of work on where it's round. And then again do the same for the top and the bottom of the Velcro on this one as well. So you should now have two tube shapes with your Velcro sewn on. You want to turn one of these now in the other way, so your Velcro is showing on the outside. So your smaller tube, I tend to do, goes in the other way. So all I'm going to do is just turn this in the other way round, and that will put my Velcro on the outside of that tube. There we go. So the outside of one and the inside of the other tube. The next stage we're going to do now is we're going to put our cardboard tubes inside of these little sleeves that we've made. So just remember which one is which. The longer tube, the longer sleeve is the bigger tube, and the shorter is the smaller. So what you want to do is get your tubes in between these two fabrics. So if you pull the middle fabric out the way, put that up through your tube, and then you want to feed your outer fabric over the top best way you can. There's not really any right or wrong way to do this, and you want that tube to slide in the middle of your two fabrics. So this is where hopefully your seam allowance has made your fabric sleeves the right size. Sometimes it's tricky to get it in first of all, but once you get it in, it slides in quite easily. There you go. And then you want to slide that all the way down. And again, it's useful to sort of get your hand in to help you slide that down the fabrics. Keep that middle fabric up the middle, so your tube is in between these fabrics now. And if you put your hand in, sort of use your finger or nail to slide it right down to that Velcro piece now, so it's nice and snug all the way down. So it can be a bit fiddly, but just take your time. You want to try not to squash your cardboard if you can help it. You want to try and keep that nice round shape. There we are. So my fabric tube now is pushed all the way down to the Velcro that I've stitched on the top. So that's one, and you want to do exactly the same for the other one. So pull your middle fabric out the way, put your tube over that middle fabric, and then slide your outer fabric around that tube. This can be a tricky stage, but just take your time. And the trickier it is, it just means you've made your sleeve nice and snug, so it's going to hold your fabrics lovely over your tube. So once you get it over, you should be able to then slide it down and sort of just push it down as best you can, keeping that middle fabric up through the centre of the tube. There you are, that one's sliding down lovely. And again, you want to push it right down to your Velcro. So this time the Velcro is inside. You can pop your hands up through it and make sure those fabrics at the top are still nice and level. And you can sort of use your nails to pull the fabric tube, the cardboard tube down. So you want your tube to keep its nice round shape. Now these tubes aren't secured down because we can't sew around here on our sewing machine. You could, if you want to, stitch around by hand, some nice embroidery thread or something if you want to just keep that tube from sliding back up. But I find it doesn't really tend to anyway because they're tied at the end. So once you've got your tubes in, the next stage is to get rid of this raw edge along the top of each of your tubes. And really simply, we're going to keep the two fabrics together now, the inside and the outside, and I'm just going to turn over once and then turn over again to get rid of those raw edges. So a little double hem all the way around. You could iron this stage to make it easier to sew, and you could either have this little raw edge on the inside or the outside of your crackers. I'm going to do this one on the inside. The inside is slightly easier to sew than sewing on the outside. Because you can follow your hemline as you're sewing around. So I'm just going to use a selection of pins and clips. So again, a little bit tricky because we're working in a small diameter of fabric. So take your time, use your iron if you need to. The iron really helps actually because it really holds the fabric in the fold you want it in. And then once you've turned it all under, you're then ready to sew. And you want to do this with both of your sides of your cracker. There we are. So I've just turned that in all the way around the top. So you can see I've got a little double hem. You can't see that raw edge at all. So I'm going to sew that now round with a straight stitch, just one straight stitch, exactly like I'd done the Velcro. So I'm going to pop it under my sewing machine and sew from the inside and sew that round. That's one. I'm going to do this the same for the second one here. So keeping the two pieces of fabric at the top together, and then just folding under and folding under again to get rid of that raw edge. So you can fold over once if you want to, press it round and then fold over again. Again, makes it slightly easier. If you want to keep the kids quiet for hours, get them to do this stage. See how long it takes them to fold under a nice double hem on this tiny piece of hemming that we're doing. Okay, so that's two. That's that one clipped around as well. You can just sort of see it in there where I've done the double hem. And then you want to then stitch this round. So I'm just going to move back to my sewing machine. This top bit of the circle out of the way because we want to sew, we're sewing from the inside, and I'm just following the bottom of that double hem that I've just folded in. So the bottom folded edge where it's open, that's where I'm sewing around. You could either sew this with a zigzag stitch if you wanted to, or a straight stitch, whatever works for you. It's up to you. In fact, let me change it to a zigzag, and then you can see the difference to my other one and this one. Or you could use one of your decorative stitches as well. This is going to show on the outside of your cracker. Just keep those clips out the way of your needle. It's probably more helpful to use pins on this stage. Make sure your raw edge stays up, tucked under that hem. Using a decorative stitch for this stage, it might also be quite nice to use a different colour thread to your fabric so that it stands out a little bit as well on the end of your crackers. Would look quite sweet. So that's one done. So I've now stitched that all the way around the inside there. So that double hem is now stitched down, and I used a zigzag stitch so you can just about see that. I've done it in my red, I haven't changed my thread, but if I change my colour thread, you'd be able to see that lovely zigzag now going all the way around my cracker, which would look quite decorative. So that's one done. I'm going to do exactly the same for the other one. There we go. And that's the other. Cutting all my threads off as I go as well, so keep your work nice and neat as you go along. The other benefit to making sure you trim all your threads off as you go as well, that when you start re-sewing on a project, you're not going to catch those threads down in your bobbin or on your needle and cause a bit of a tangle. So there's the second one done. Again, there you are, it's stitched inside, and you can just about see that zigzag on the outside there in places. It's quite hidden with the red. So that's now finished my two tubes off. So I've hemmed both the open ends. They've got their Velcro on the bottom as well, so they're ready to stick together. They've got their tubes inside, and now what I need to do is tie up these top ends to make my cracker shape and my little pull, my little hand pulls. So what I've done on this one is one of them I have sewn the gather together. I've done this so that it's really easy to put my little gift inside. So if I undo this bow on my ready-made one, you can see there I've stitched by hand just a few stitches round to hold that gather together. So when I'm filling up my cracker, I know it's not going to tip out the other end. So that one is permanently gathered with some hand sewing stitches in there. And just to show you as well, I was going to show you this one. I've done the hem on the outside of my cracker. It was much more tricky to sew because I still need to sew it from the inside, so I couldn't see where my hem was falling. I just had to kind of feel as I went. But that's what the hem looks like on the outside, and that's the hem from the sewn on the inside, just so you can see. So this is my smaller tube here, so I now need to just pop some hand stitches in here just to hold this gather together, and you basically just want to gather it up fairly tight, and we're going to put our ribbon around there as well. So using your colour thread that you're matches your fabric is worth it on here. And just enough stitches just to secure it, really. That's all we're doing at this stage. So get yourself a hand sewing needle. You may be able to sew this on the sewing machine, but the problem with that is you might then sort of squash your cardboard tube inside trying to get it close to your foot. So I would definitely recommend doing this bit by hand. It only takes a minute, and it will just keep the shape of your tube nice and round. So all I'm going to do here is scrunch this up, and I'm literally going to roughly put some stitches through here to hold it in place. I'm just going to start by doing a couple front and back, trying to get them in the same place just to start it off. And then what I'm also going to do is just pull the thread around nice and tight, and that will give me my gather shape a bit easier, and then push it back through again. There we go, and that just starts to pull it in then, as you can see. You can go again. You can even put your needle back up through that loop to like tie a knot as well. And you want to do that a good few times just to secure that gather in place and stop it from opening up and losing your gift or toy. So we were also thinking about on the live video last night what we could put inside of our crackers. So if you've got some fab ideas of what you could put inside of your reusable crackers, either for Christmas or parties or whatever you're using them for, drop them in the comments below. It's always good to have other people's perspective on, you know, how things can be used. So yeah, if you've got some fab ideas, drop that in the comments below and let us know what you think. So I'm just going to finish this off now. So I've just gone through sort of about 10 times there so that you're happy that it's secure. I'm just going to finish off with some little stitches in the same place and trim my thread off. So that one now, so that one is secured. So that's the one where your little gift will drop in. It's not going to fall out the bottom at all. That one's ready to pop your ribbon through. So I've got this tartan ribbon I was going to use on here. So before you cut a length, if you've sort of bought a metre of ribbon or whatever, you'll probably need more than a metre. I'd buy about 1.5 meters for bows because they take, you know, a lot more than you would expect. I'm literally just wrapping it around the end and then tying a big bow. You want to try and remember what side has got the sealed end so you don't keep untying it by accident. There you are, make a lovely bow. As pretty as you can get it. The bigger the ribbon, I find, looks a bit more luxurious and fun, I feel. Just trim those ends off. So that's one done. There's my lovely ribbon. So that's one. And then I'm going to do exactly the same for this one, but I'm not going to secure that. So what you would do when you're filling your cracker is you would secure your cracker together first. So you get your one that's pre-tied on the end. You'd put your hands in the other one. You'd then stick your Velcro together on the cracker. So you just go round. It's much easier with your hands inside because you can kind of guide it and stop it from squashing. And you want to get that nice and neat, so you don't really want to see too much of that Velcro as well. So you can overlap it slightly if you can. Oh. And get that sort of fixed as neat as you can. Push your tube down, and then once you've secured it with the Velcro in the middle, fill it up with all your gifts in there. It's not going to fall out because you've already tied and secured this other end. So fill it up with all your gifts. You've got loads of room in there. You could put all sorts. You could even wrap little gifts if you're using it as a present wrapping. Put a little joke in that you can make whatever you fancy. So fill it up, and then you just want to tie your top side. So you just literally don't want to secure this with stitching. You just want to tie this one because this is your open end. You might need another pair of hands to help you do this other end. So just pop your ribbon through. I'm just wrapping it around twice because it's easier one-handed to do this if you wrap it around twice. And then you just want to do your bow for the other side. And again, when you're first securing this, I wouldn't cut your ribbon until you've done your bow, so you know how much ribbon you actually need to make a lovely bow. And then once you've done it the first time, you can trim it off. And that's going to be your one that you retie. And there you have it. That is your reusable handmade sewn cracker a fabulous idea that could be reused year after year. The kids will love it because it's so different, and you can fill it with all gorgeous stuff, all stuff that could be usable, and you know, it's not going to be causing any waste at all. So that is my fabric reusable cracker. I hope you have enjoyed that. I can't wait to see how you get on, and if you want to share some pictures, please do in the comments. I love seeing what you've made. It really inspires me to share more tutorials with you. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more tutorials, vlogs, and sewing conversations over coffee, coming very soon. Hope you've enjoyed that, and if you'd like to join my social sewing community group on Facebook, where I do live sewings regularly, I will pop the link in the comments below for you. So you can hop over and join that as well. Until next time, thank you so much for joining me, and enjoy making your crackers, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye!